November 1, 1993 Observer Newsletter, Halloween Havok 1993, Rock Future Prediction, tons more. By Observer Staff. Wrestling Observer Newsletter. November 1, 1993. Question: how is it impossible to put together a show where from bell to bell the match quality is the highest of any pay-per-view show since February and is topped off by arguably the best match bell to bell of the year in this country and still have it only be a marginal thumbs up? Answer: have Dusty Rhodes book the finishes. More on that later, but based on phone calls, despite the fact that thumbs up/thumbs down numbers would indicate something of a diversity of opinion, the responses were almost all uniform, going something like this. Match quality was very good. The main event was incredible, but had the worst finish of all. The finishes were so bad it may/would have been a thumbs down show if not for the main event, or in a few cases, even the main event couldn't save the show because of all the finishes. I loved the show because I thought 7 of the 8 matches were good, which is more than any pay-per-view from either WWF or WCW in a long time. The work in the main event deserves all the superlatives it'll be receiving. But one can't argue with any of the complaints by those who didn't like the show. When you do unrealistic screw job finishes in every match, then none of them are going to work except in turning off fans from repeat business. After years of declining and erosion of this business in this country, with screw job finishes one of the leading culprits, one would think someone would wake up to see the formula of promotions that are thriving by doing clean finishes and how they turn their companies around when adopting that policy. Screw job finishes did work in building to return matches in the 70s, but in 1993, hopefully someone would have learned that most of what drew money in the 70s hasn't worked in years, because everyone who has tried to copy the formula of the 70s has failed miserably, and the only companies that have been successful are those who have created a new formula. Maybe if screw jobs on occasion, when incorporated into a product with 90% clean finishes, would still work today drawing money because they would be something different. But we'll never know at this rate. All that we do know is that when done with regularity, they serve no purpose other than long-term erosion of product interest. That can be pointed out not just in WCW but in several other companies and in several other countries that are still booking behind the times fashion and are steadily following WCW's path to oblivion when it comes to house show attendance. The Vader Cactus Jack main event exemplified what is beginning to turn into a dangerous trend in this business. Not disturbing to fans because many love matches such as this. It's disturbing because the element of risk and injury is being flirted with much too closely when matches get as stiff and legitimately brutal as this and other recent matches have turned out to be. I was actually planning on writing this before the Havok show, with the main emphasis being on the plight of the All Japan Women's Wrestling promotion in 1993 and the daredevil tactics of Sabu. But Jack and Vader then put on a match that was one of the best of the year, and in many ways defines the problem. Violence on television has become a major political issue in recent weeks. Luckily for pro wrestling, nobody cares enough about it to where any possible ramifications of Senate hearings aren't going to be applied to its product mix. Besides, any serious wrestling fan shouldn't be nearly as offended by what's fake about the product, as by what's real. Without violence, whether fake or real, there would be no pro wrestling. That's the lure. Going overboard can and is a turnoff to the general audience, although there is a small hardcore that even going way overboard appeals to. But total elimination of both fake and real violence in the long run would mean the total elimination of pro wrestling as an entertainment form. Most pro wrestlers' matches aren't as brutal, dangerous or legitimately violent as many other pro sports, boxing being the first that comes to mind. That's a necessity because the top pro wrestlers have to work anywhere from 150 to 250 times per year. In a UWF-style promotion, where there is more legitimate violence, the wrestlers have the benefit of generally working once every 4 weeks or so. There is always going to be a "can you top this" mentality to pro wrestling. Younger wrestlers are constantly learning from and imitating those who have stretched the boundaries of their imagination when it comes to brutality and acrobatics. Because of that, and despite the cries that this isn't so from old-timers, the actual in-ring product constantly evolves and constantly improves unless it's stifled by those who can't bear to let go of the past. But with improvements, if the new ways include either stiffer and more realistically brutal blows, as in Japan, or higher risk acrobatics, as in Mexico, comes an increase in the dangers. At what point do the risks exceed the potential rewards? Time can't be turned back, but if you want to see where this trend is going to lead with men's wrestling in the future, you have to look at the group that is years ahead of all others when it comes to the in-ring product, the All Japan Women. All Japan Women had its most successful year since the mid-80s at the gate and achieved its highest level of mainstream popularity in many years. 2 of its shows, the April 2nd Dream Slam 1 card and the August 25th Budokan Hall show, were among the 5 largest crowds in history for all women's wrestling shows and most likely far and away the 2 largest gates, with each most likely topping $1 million. Previous record before this year was about $500,000. Dream Slam 1 was, if one can make a totally subjective statement as fact, the single greatest collection of matches on any card in history and in the opinion of many, the greatest wrestling card of all time. Dream Slam 2 wasn't far behind. When it comes to moves, speed and execution, they've taken the art form to a new level. Even though they are women, when it comes to legitimate brutality, working with pain and overall guts, they are second to none. The result of this has been a very successful year for the promotion. But is it worth the human cost? Virtually every wrestler in the group works with varying degrees of serious injury and pain. Pain is a part of life of any wrestler. It goes with the territory. So is doing risky moves. Many injuries have and will always occur on basic moves that aren't even all that dangerous, but either the landing is a little off and a body part blows out, or a body part simply gives out from the constant wear and tear. But when a wrestler, like Akira Hokuto, comes back too fast after a knee operation after a broken back to appear on a major show, is it guts, or is it insanity? When a wrestler stands there and lets another man swing a chair as hard as he can to his head without putting up his hands to block or cushion the blow, is it guts, or is it insanity? When a wrestler dives out of control from the ring to a concrete floor without the fluidity and experience to protect himself and then literally has to be scraped off the concrete, is it guts or insanity? Anyone who saw the second back suplex that Steve Williams gave Kenta Kobashi a few weeks back was in awe of the move, but the truth of the matter is that Kobashi, the most talented performer in the business, literally risked a serious chance at a broken neck that could have ended his career to make a finish look like nothing ever seen before. People like Cactus Jack, Sabu, Psicosis, Rey Mysterio Jr., Tsuyoshi Kikuchi and countless others are either beginning to or already have taken the limitations of insanity and stretched them to insane levels. It's scary to think of the condition their hips, back and joints will be in when they reach the age of 30. Sabu, who didn't achieve stardom in this business or work a full-time schedule until recent years, is about 30. Jack is 28, let alone in old age. The crazy moves of Dynamite Kid, who had the advantage of being an incredible athlete to boot, paled in comparison with these men, and yet Kid was nearly a cripple by the age of 30 and now, at 34, is a forgotten man in the profession where 10 years ago, before his 25th birthday, he was revered by many as being its best worker. There are Japanese and Mexican wrestlers that have become quadriplegics from missing dives outside the ring. The fact that the nature of this business is such that taking care of those who have given isn't one of its strong suits only makes the long-term stories of these men even more precarious, even as their peers and fans applaud them for their courage, imagination and guts. In their cases, it is no longer working a style with an element of risk, it is working a style with a certainty of both risk and of long-term serious damage. Anyone who has been around older wrestlers who have put 20 years in knows that while some wind up in old age as the pictures of health, the bumps aren't so kind in the long run to others. But the daredevils of today put their bodies through more punishment in a few years than some crippled ex-wrestlers did in 20-year careers. The All Japan Women's Group has just enough wrestlers left standing to put on cards. Virtually all are hurting in some way or another. It is not unheard of for young women to come to the building with knees and ankles so blown out that it hurts to walk, and then do tapes onto the floor to further damage those joints. The casualty list for 1993 is scary. Hokuto, who came back from a broken neck, suffered years ago from a tombstone pile driver off the top rope, a move that, because of its risk, hasn't been repeated that I know of since, has gone from one major injury to another in what will probably be her final year as a wrestler. Terry Power practically destroyed both one knee and one side of her upper body learning the ropes in Japan, and hasn't been able to wrestle since April. The 2 other non-natives that were regulars, Debbie Malenko and Esther Moreno, both have been out of action for more than 6 months after suffering broken legs. Mariko Yoshida, who 1 year ago was thought to be potentially the best of all the younger girls, broke her neck and missed virtually the entire year. This past week alone, 9 of the 24 wrestlers who started the year were out of action due to various injuries. Saki Hasegawa's back and knees have led to constant recurring injuries. Most of the remaining healthy ones, besides working on damaged joints, are performing a style where the risk of serious injury is so high that it's almost a certainty. The upside is these women, as a group, are the best in-ring performers this business has, and when enough of the top women are healthy at any one period, they have the ability to put on the best shows this business has ever seen. They also go from being inexperienced rookies to superior workers on average many times faster than performers in any other group. But when the chance of injury increases from the risk that the nature of this business demands to a certainty, it may be time to try and get things under control. How can that be done? First, increasing the amount of submission holds that are over allows less bumps to be taken and less crazy moves to have to be done during the climax of the matches. Second, if the style demands high-risk maneuvers, keep the schedule manageable enough to at least try and minimize certain risks. Any promotion that works a serious hard style nightly, none in the US qualify in this category, is insane to work guys 200 dates per year, or else their best young talent will never reach its prime in one piece. While many are waiting for the day American wrestling reaches that level of proficiency, if it does without learning safeguards, there is a serious downside to progress. A few notes on the fallout of the Randy Savage interview regarding Hulk Hogan on the WWF radio show on October 16. First, this was not an angle as was believed at the time last week's Observer went to press. The most intriguing aspect of all this is that Hogan was asked a few days earlier to appear on the show, although never informed that Savage would be on or what subject matter was being planned for the show. Apparently there was a well laid out plan to ambush an unknowing Hogan with Savage's comments in a public forum. Hogan, who had done the same radio show 2 weeks earlier, apparently had a premonition something was up, since it was awfully quick to be asked back to do a radio show for a company he was no longer working for, or simply was busy and lucked into not being in a potentially embarrassing position. Even as the show was going on, neither Jim Ross nor Randy Savage knew for certain whether or not Hogan was going to call in, as reportedly he never either confirmed or non-confirmed the request to appear. While many were furious with some remarks Savage made, Hogan is publicly taking the ignore it and it'll go away position and isn't expected to publicly acknowledge any of this ever happened. Hogan, who spent most of this past week at Disney Studios in Orlando filming Circus of the Stars, which he's hosting with MTV's Adam Curry for CBS TV, supposedly wasn't even aware of the comments on either television or radio until Tuesday. There is a good case to be made for taking this position, since if Hogan were to get into a public pissing contest, he'd end up having his name soiled even more, particularly since any attempt at defending himself on the charge of lying on Arsenio is going to be tough to pull off. At the same time, this ignore it and it'll go away position when it comes to same repeated criticism for lying on Arsenio Hall in July 1991, has ended up being extremely damaging to Hogan. While he's attempted to ignore it and pretend it has gone away for 2.5 years, it has constantly resurfaced since that time and has resulted in severe damage to his image both as a wrestling drawing card and in many public arenas, and much private criticism within his profession. If not the idea itself, almost surely the approval of the idea, to have Savage go on radio and make those comments had to come from Vince McMahon. Because of that, the relationship between the WWF and Hogan, the name synonymous with the organization for the past 10 years, has to be strained more now than ever before, and many close to the situation believe it is now strained beyond repair. Nobody has come up with any reasons, just speculation, for why this plan, which in hindsight appears to have been a dramatic way of making a statement against Hogan, was implemented. But if you're anxiously waiting for more interviews of this nature to build to a Hogan-Savage match at WrestleMania, the odds are extremely long against anything more being said or the match happening. I didn't want to make many comments about the actual remarks Savage made, since at the time of last week's issue, I was under the impression it was a unique beginning of a WrestleMania angle. First, while this is hardly saying anything that hasn't been said to death, it's hypocritical in this position to knock someone for telling the truth. Savage's comments regarding Hogan's Arsenio interview have been said by others both publicly and privately for 2.5 years. One can knock Savage or Titan Sports itself, since Savage was acting in some ways as a company mouthpiece in this interview, for saying the same thing the company had been so outraged about when others went public with identical statements years earlier. But truth is truth. Among the many within wrestling that have privately commented to me on this situation, the consensus of opinion is that if Hogan lied on Arsenio regarding steroids, then at best, Savage's appearance when he addressed the same subject many months later was only slightly more honest. Savage did the show after much outcry claiming Hogan lied had already gone public and could learn from the mistake he made. Savage at best addressed the steroid subject as a way to get off a pre-planned joke when he categorized his own use as experimenting when it was legal, but he quit when they gave him PMS. Savage didn't lie and deny use, but hardly can be congratulated for setting an example and coming clean on his personal use, exactly what he criticized Hogan for not doing. The term experimenting would lead to the public to believe very minimal use over a short period of time. Statements about legality of steroid use are in some cases questionable depending upon time frame used, how they were obtained and where they were used and obtained, as laws varied from state to state and from year to year. Many comments by wrestlers regarding use when legal have turned out to be incorrect. Grand jury evidence have shown Federal Express packages from convicted steroid dealer Dr. George Zahorian to Randy Poffo between 1987 to 89 totaled 9 pounds, roughly the same quantity during the same time period as of packages sent to Terry Bollea. It can't be confirmed that these packages contained exclusively steroids or even steroids at all, since Sahorian was convicted of distributing illegal drugs other than steroids, and also distributed vitamins and other medications to wrestlers based on trial testimony. As far as Hogan and his wife's role during the period of Savage's separation from his wife, many feel it was a cheap shot by Savage, particularly in bringing Hogan's wife into it. I'm in no position to judge any statements on that subject. My feeling is you can't knock someone for saying something if it's the truth, but what the actual truth was of that situation is something that only a few people know. Halloween Havoc 93 rundown from the University of New Orleans Lakefront Arena. The show drew 6,000 fans, about 3,000 of which was paid in a building set up for an 8,500 capacity. Although the paid crowd and gate was smaller than Fall Brawl in Houston, it was far more lively, which made for a much better atmosphere. 1. Ice Train and Shockmaster and Charlie Norris beat Harlem Heat and the Equalizer in 9:45 when Master pinned one member of Heat with a bear hug falling into a powerslam type move. For the second pay-per-view in a row, the other member of Heat was standing there right in front of the finish trying to figure out how not to break up the bear hug with no face keeping him from doing so. Much was fine, actually much better than it looked to be on paper, but it looked scary on paper, except when Equalizer was in. Post-match brawl with Shockmaster and Equalizer was awful. 1 star. 2. Paul Orndorff, replacing Yoshi Kwan, who blew out his knee about 11 days before the show, beat Rick Steamboat via countout in 1835. First in a series of really good matches with lame finishes. The Assassin, Jody Hamilton, was Orndorff's manager with no interview explaining it nor reason given. Good action throughout with a lot of nice near falls toward the end. Finally Steamboat hit the crossbody, but Assassin distracted the ref, and by the time he turned around, Orndorff kicked out. Steamboat got several more near falls after shoulder blocks. Steamboat threw the ref out of the way, but missed a charge at Orndorff and sailed to the floor. Assassin then loaded his mask and head-butted Steamboat, who was counted out of the ring. 3.5 stars. 3. Lord Steven Regal and Davey Boy Smith went to a 15-minute draw, so Regal retains the WCW TV title. They worked European style early, which was really good as Smith did a lot more and a lot of different maneuvers than he usually does. He's actually quite agile for his weight, but in a lot of matches never shows it. Regal was great doing the mat wrestling, although fans in this country really don't comprehend what he's doing. The finish was supposed to be Smith doing a power slam at the bell, however the timekeeper told them they had 10 seconds left when Smith picked Regal up for the move, but then announced 20 seconds left over the house mic, so Regal had to kick out. They improvised the pile driver at the bell near fall. 2.75 stars. 4. Dustin Rhodes retained the U.S. title, pinning Steve Austin in 14:23. The graphic listed Austin as being managed by Rob Parker, but Parker wasn't with him and the graphic was about 2 weeks ahead. By normal standards this was a good match, but he was lacking, and these two had a tons better pay-per-view match more than a year ago. After several near falls, Austin got a pin with his feet on the ropes. Ref Nick Patrick ordered the match to continue as Austin went to look for the belt, and Rhodes schoolboyed him for the pin. After the match, Austin hit Rhodes with the title belt and Rhodes juiced. 2.75 stars. 5. Nasty Boys regained the WCW tag titles, beating Marcus Bagwell and Too Cold Scorpio in 14:36. Scorpio stood out with his acrobatics and flying moves, including a move where he dived off Bagwell's back into a tope on both Nasty Boys. Early in the match, Bagwell kissed Missy Hyatt. Hyatt then slapped Bagwell when they got him in trouble. Bagwell did a great job selling for 7 minutes until making the hot tag. Scorpio got a near fall with a moonsault block. At this point both Hyatt and Teddy Long started getting tangled up on the apron with Sags and Bagwell. Bagwell rammed Sags and Missy's head together and Scorpio hit the Scorpio splash on Knobs. Sags took off his boot and hit Scorpio with it and rolled Knobs on top for the pin. This was a very good match, but have you noticed that every Nasty Boys victory has the exact same finish? 3.5 stars. 6. Sting pinned Sid Vicious in 10:41 to remain the franchise. Okay, what title means anything if you've already got 2 different world champions, a Battle Bowl champion upcoming, and 2 other singles titles, yet the franchise match involves 2 wrestlers with no titles? This was much better than their 91 Havoc main event, and a lot better than expected. Vicious sold a lot early and they brawled into the crowd. After Sting was distracted by Parker, Vicious gave him a choke slam to gain the advantage. Vicious took control and used a chair shot and dropped Sting throat first on the guardrail. Fans were chanting at this point Sid, which the announcer said on the air were chants for Sting. Vicious slowed it down with long beer hugs. Sting came back with 2 stinger splashes. At this point Parker, while not looking, grabbed 2 legs which he thought were Sting's but were actually 1 leg of each. He held onto the Sid leg harder and Sting had Sid pinned but he kicked out. As Sid and Parker argued, Sting came up from behind with a rolling reverse cradle. 2 3/4 stars. 7. Rick Rude retained the now officially re-recognized World Heavyweight title, beating Ric Flair via DQ in 1922. This match had 2 referees, one of which was Terry Taylor, whose referee stint was supposed to equate his babyface turn, although I don't think most people got it. Earlier in the show Taylor did an interview pretty much saying he's changing his ways. Earlier in the show an announcement was made that the international promoters of WCW recognized Rude's title as a World Heavyweight title so that the title is now valid once again. This must make the fans at home think this company lacks any long-term thought process, not to mention how this rescinding a title validations and then giving it back so easily makes all the titles in the promotion look bogus. This was a lot better than last month's match, very good with Flair doing very little of his normal routine, but with the worst finish thus far in the show. Flair started fast and got the figure 4 on in 2 minutes, but Rude made the ropes. Flair continued to work over the leg until Rude whipped him to the floor. Rude continued selling the long for a long period of time, making the earlier damage seem realistic. After a double bump over the top, Flair came off the top rope to the floor with a punch/clothesline. Flair tried it a second time but Rude caught him with a punch and took control. Once in the ring, Rude came off the top but his knee buckled and he sold it, but still maintained the advantage using his patented several-minute camel clutch. Flair made a comeback and hit the Rude Awakening in 1650 for a near fall. Flair came off the top but Rude got his feet in Flair's face. Flair came back with chops. Then we had 2 ref bumps. Rude pulled out an object but Flair back suplexed him and the object went flying. A TBS still photographer at ringside, not realizing what was going on, grabbed the object which ostensibly ruined an already bad finish. The photographer had to give the object back to Flair so he could use it and get caught by ref Randy Anderson for the DQ. After the match Rude tried to kidnap Fifi but Flair tackled him on the ramp and went for the figure 4 but it was broken up by officials. 3 1/4 stars. 8. Vader won a Texas death match, which is what the will revealed from Cactus Jack in 1559. They used old-style deathmatch rules, which means falls don't count and it continues until one man can't answer the bell after a 30 seconds rest period. They also added a falls count anywhere stipulation to the old deathmatch rules. Tony Schiavone opened the match repeating the Cactus Jack angle about losing his memory, etc. that had all been recanted months earlier. Don't they follow their own television? This was an incredible match marred by an incredibly bad finish. Harley Race shot Jack with a stun gun so he couldn't get up from the 10 count. What's next? A straight edge razor, a switchblade, and finally a .44 Magnum? This was the most brutal of their 3 matches, which is saying a lot, and probably the best pay-per-view match either has said, which is saying even more. Both men took brutal head-on chair shots without blocking. Both were covered in blood. Jack was opened up by Vader's continual punches around the eye and it looked to be hard way. They were suplexing one another on the ramp and floor. At one point they brawled onto the stage made up to look like a graveyard and underneath a tombstone going downstairs. Vader came up bloody. Jack hit him with a stiff clothesline and got the first fall on the ramp at 5:39. Jack did an elbow drop off the ramp to the floor and got a second fall pin in, 28. They got back in the ring and Jack threw Vader into a table for a near fall. Jack tried a sunset flip off the apron onto the floor but Vader didn't go over, tried to sit on Jack, but Jack moved. Jack then dropped Vader onto the guardrail and over. Jack tried a flip splash over the guardrail but Vader moved. Vader then threw Jack back over the rail and hit him with a chair shot. They got back in the ring and Vader took the third fall with a moonsault in 4:33. Vader crushed Jack on the ramp to start the fourth fall and swung a chair like a baseball bat to the head and got another pin with a DDT on a chair in 2:16. Jack immediately got up and DDT'd Vader on a chair to score a pin, but during the rest period, Race shot Jack with the stun gun. Jack got right up after losing and gave Race a double-arm DDT on the ramp, but Race got up too quickly and walked away. If you didn't buy this pay-per-view, you really owe it to yourself to get a tape to see this match. 4 3/4 stars. The announcing was much improved from Fall Brawl, but it's a lot easier to give a good announcing performance on a good show. The gimmick of Michael Buffer as a guest ring announcer has run its course. El Espectro, one of the legends of Mexican wrestling, passed away on October 13 at the age of 70. The passing away of Espectro, whose real name was Antonio Hernandez, was the cover story in every wrestling magazine in Mexico this past week and was the subject of an inch ring ceremony on the October 16 AAA card at Juan de la Barrera Gym and mentioned on the television telecast of that show dozens of times. Hernandez is the father of two AAA wrestlers, Picudo and the current Espectro, and the uncle of current AAA president Antonio Pena, who in the late 50s was the first Espectro Jr. There have been at least 10 other wrestlers that have used the Espectro gimmick in Mexico City, including two midgets that each held titles using the gimmick last year, Espectrito in AAA and Ultrade Mbita in EMLL, and another who wrestled in Southern California in the early 70s. Hernandez, who apparently always hated the Espectro gimmick, is most well known in Mexico wrestling history for being a major player in the first major promotion war in the country. After debuting as Espectro de Ultra Tumba, a gimmick also later copied in EMLL in recent years, in 1950, he was brought in by a rival group backed by Televicentro, the leading television network in Mexico that is now Televisa, and made the top star of the new promotion which focused on its television product. Because the group couldn't book major arenas in Mexico City because EMLL had them all locked up, they based themselves out of Guadalajara, but the promotion was short-lived. Magazines all made note of the irony that the second time Televisa has attempted to start a rival promotion, it was run by the nephew of Espectro. After the promotion folded, Espectro returned to EMLL and as a major name, but his career was cut short when he suffered a crushed skull from a pile driver in a 1954 match against Joe Grant. He had a steel plate put in his forehead and was told by doctors to never wrestle again. He did a few brief comebacks working as a tag team with Pena under the mask as the first Espectro Jr. and finally when the commission ordered him to retire, he went around the horn unmasking in every major arena. The trade magazine Cablevision listed the following confirmed dates for 1994 pay-per-view shows, with WCW scheduled for 7 pay-per-view shows in 1994 and WWF 5. WWF Royal Rumble, Providence, Rhode Island, takes place January 22. WCW Super Brawl is February 20th, WrestleMania X, Madison Square Garden, is March 20th, not April 3rd as listed here previously. WCW has dates on April 12th and May 22nd. WWF King of the Ring is June 19th, WCW Back on July 17th. WWF SummerSlam is August 28th, WCW Fall Brawl is September 18th, WCW Halloween Havoc is October 21st. Survivor Series is November 23rd and Starrcade is December 27th. Results: October 9th Vienna, Austria, WWF, Bob Backlund b Papa Shango, 1-2-3 Kid b Doink the Clown, Steve Lombardi, Head Shrinkers b Smoking Guns, Coffin Match, Undertaker b Atom Bomb, Lex Luger b Ludwig Borga DQ, Mr. Perfect b Diesel DQ, Razor Ramon b IRS Corps. October 11th Mito, All Japan Women, 1620, Tomoka Watanabe b Chikako Shiradori, Yumiko Hata and Takako Inoue b Mima Shimoda and Etsuko Mita, Kaoru Ito b Saki Hasegawa, Manami Toyota and Toshio Yamada and Kyoko Inoue b Asia Kong and Bull Nakano and Suzuka Minami 2217. October 12th Fukuyama, All Japan Women, 1675, Tomoka Watanabe b Chikako Shiradori, Kaoru Ito b Numaki, Etsuko Mita and Suzuka Minami b Takako Inoue and Yumiko Hata, Manami Toyota b Saki Hasegawa, Kyoko Inoue and Toshio Yamada b Asia Kong and Mima Shimoda. October 12th Arena Coliseo in Mexico City, EMLL, La Diabolica and Tanya b Lady Star and Cynthia Moreno, Ponzonia and America b Olympus and Legendario, Trident and Nagila de Plata and Nagila Solitaria b Tornado Negro I and Arcangel de la Muerte and Guerrero de la Muerte DQ, Pantera 2 and Americo Rocca and Oro b Folino and Javier Cruz and Jacquemate, non-title, Sangre Chicana and Bestia Salvaje and Mocho Cota b Los Brazos. October 13th Munakata, All Japan Women, 1120, Numaki b Chikako Shiradori, Suzuka Minami b Tomoko Watanabe, Asia Kong and Saki Hasegawa b Mima Shimoda and Etsuko Mita, Kyoko Inoue b Kaoru Ito, Minami Toyota and Toshio Yamada b Yumiko Hata and Takako Inoue. October 13th Acapulco, EMLL, Lalo El Exotico b Aquiles, Ludwigcito Star and Aspirantito b Sinistrito and Centorito, La Sombra and Ludwig Star b Folino and Vertigo DQ, Sangre Chicana and Pierroth Jr. and Emilio Charles Jr. b King Haku and Oro and Brazo de Plata DQ. October 14th Sakus, All Japan Women, 1001, Tomoko Watanabe b Chikako Shiradori, Mima Shimoda b Numaki, Minami Toyota and Mima Shimoda b Kaoru Ito and Saki Hasegawa, Toshio Yamada b Etsuko Mita, Asia Kong and Suzuka Minami B Takako Inoue and Kyoko Inoue. October 14, Reading, Pennsylvania, IWA, 400, Johnny Wildside B Mark Mest, Jimmy Deo B Flex Wheeler, Gino Caruso B The Scab, Troy Mess B Vinny Biondo, Ripper NC Nomad, Neil Superior B Rob Morton, Max Crimson B Professor 4-Pack, Johnny Gunn B King Kala, Ian and Axel Rotten DDQ Drifters, Wheeler B 4-Pack, Jimmy B Good B Wildside, Midnight Rocker B Morgan, Kala B Mark Mest, Troy Mess B Crimson, Deadly Dutchman B Biondo, Gun B Deo. October 14, Now Calpon, EMLL, Hechicero Negro B Christian Diaz, Los Reyes Tapatios 1 and 2 B Dinamicos 1 and 2, Mono Negra and Cranio and Cerebro B Atlantis and Fantastic and Ringo Mendoza, CMLL HWT title, Brazo de Plata B Gran Marcus Jr. October 15, Spencer, Tennessee, Great South Wrestling, Billy Cooper B Dr. Death, Miss Penny B Lisa Love, Ken Arden and Billy Montana B Big Bubba and Brad Cameron, Nighthawk B Matt Maverick, Rick and David Starr B Daryl Monroe and Cooper. October 15, Salt Lake City, Ind, Punisher 1 Battle Royal, The House B Gary Werlowski, Ron Rude B Sean Powers, Hillbilly B Marty the Maniac, Allen and Punisher B Jaime Escalante and Tony Barantini, Dash Rip Rock B The Blaster. October 15, Marion, North Carolina, PWF, 165, Star Rider B Super Ninja, Russian Assassin B American GI, Black Scorpion B Killdozer, George South and Terry Austin B Flaming Youth and Cruel Connection No. 2, Italian Stallion B Austin Steele, Tim Woody 1 Battle Royal. October 16, Sharpsburg, Georgia, WCW, Frankie Lancaster B Shanghai Pierce, The Ace B The Gambler, Big Caboose B Tex Slashinger DQ, Slashinger and Pierce B Caboose and Lancaster, Charlie Norris B Max Payne DQ, Harlem Heat B Thunder and Ice Train. October 16, Kagoshima, All Japan Women, 1730, Tomoko Watanabe B Chikako Shiratori, Saki Hasegawa B Numiki, Yumiko Hata and Suzuka Minami B Atsuko Mita and Mima Shimoda, Kaoru Ito B Takako Inoue, Minami Toyota and Asia Kong B Tashio Yamada and Kyoko Inoue. October 16, El Campo, Texas, Indiana, Bubba Monroe B Wichita Willie, Moon Dog B Al Jones, Don Serrano B Jason the 13th, Big Billy B Tattoo Warrior, Rico Suave B Bob Butcher DQ. October 16, Hamlet, North Carolina, PWF, 128, Star Rider B Black Scorpion, Russian Assassin B American GI, Killdozer B Super Ninja, George South B Flaming Youth, Italian Stallion B Austin Steel DQ, Stallion 1 Battle Royal. October 17, El Toreo and Now Calpon, UWA, 1000, El Colosso and Rocky Santana B Espantos 4 and 5, Super Raton and Super Pinocho B Karloff Lagarde Jr. and Mercenario DQ, Vita Hiroaki and the Killer and Black Power 2 B Shuel Guerrero and El Engendro and Scorpio Jr., Silver King and El Signo and Negro Navarro B El Texano and Gran Hamada and Super Astro, Dos Caras and Yamato B Kanek and King Haku. October 17, Plymouth, New Hampshire, New England Wrestling Federation, 1000, Slayer Brothers B Bruno Scarletti and Rip Morrison, Max Moon, Tom Borick, B Bob Evans, Brittany Brown B Jamie Westcor, Mr. Hughes B Tony Roy, Paul Bunyan B Bulldozer DQ, Nails B Johnny Royal, Brian Delphia B Mad Dog Richard, Bill Wilcox B Freight Train Fulton DQ, Demolition Axe B Richard Charlon DQ, Bushwhackers B El Loco, Scarletti, and Cato, Boric. October 17, Arena Coliseo in Mexico City, EMLL, Nuevo Links and Rey Bucanero B Olympico and Ultimatum, Escudero Rojo and Reyes Falos B El Filoso and Talisman Jr., Guerrero Maya and Iluminado Maestro and Guerrero del Futuro B Chicago Express and Mestizo and Gran Apache I, Supremo 2 and Cacho Mendoza and Jacquemate B La Sombra and Oro and Blue Demon Jr., Rayo de Jalisco Jr. and Ultimo Dragon and Dandy B Emilio Charles Jr. and Sangre Chicana and Mocho Kota DQ. October 18, Totori, New Japan, 3560, Tatsuhito Takaiwa B Yuji Nagata, Michioshi Ohara B Satoshi Kojima, The Barbarian and Masa Saito B El Samurai and Manabu Nakanishi, Akira Nagami and Takayuki Izuka B Black Cat and Sean Royal, Keiji Muto and Hiroshi Hazi B Kengo Kimura and Tatsutoshi Goto, Hawk and Power Warrior B Jushin Liger and Wild Pegasus, Masa Chono and Shinya Hashimoto B Shiro Koshinaka and Kunyaki Kobayashi, Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Kido B Scott Norton and Hercules Fernandez. October 18, Chiba, FMW 2510, Dark Ranger B Masato Tanaka, Kuroda B Mr. Chen, Shark Tsuchiya B Yuki Nabano, Masaru Toy B Damien DQ, Combat Toyota and Crusher Matamari and Supreme Mac B Megumi Kudo and Nurse Nakamura and Miwa Sato, Onita Jr. B Hasaka, Mr. Pogo and the Gladiator and Big Titan B Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke and Battle Ranger, No Rope Barbed Wire Street Fight Tornado Deathmatch, Mr. Pogo and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga B Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako. October 18 Nanioka, Michinoku Pro, 266, Leopardo Negro B Akihito Yonakawa, Grand Naniwa and Jinsei Shinzaki DDQ Taka Michinoku and Shiryu, Oriental and Sato and Great Sasuke B Tarako and Superboy and the Super Delphin. October 18 Mijua, All Japan, 1190, prelim results unavailable, Kyoko Inoue B Saki Hasegawa, Asia Kong and Suzuka Minami B Minami Toyota and Yumiko Hata. October 18 Greenville, South Carolina, Black Star Promotions, 108, Ricky Star B Billy Star, The Punisher B Matt James, TC Carter DDQ Vladimir Koloff, Mr. Clean and David Isley B Johnny Dollar and The Mauler, Junkyard Dog B Pez Watley. October 19 Glens Falls, New York, WWF Challenge Taping, Non-Squash Results, WWF Tag Title, Rick and Scott Steiner B Quebecers DQ, Bastion Booger B 123 Kid, Brett and Owen Hart B Well Done, WWF Title, Yokozuna B Mr. Perfect, Owen Hart B Sabu, Marty Jannetty B Diesel Core, Lex Luger B Ludwig Borga, Cage Match, Bret Hart B Jerry Lawler. October 19 Hiroshima, New Japan, 6000 Sellout, Manabu Nakanishi B Yuji Nagata, Kunyaki Kobayashi B El Samurai, The Barbarian and Masa Saito B Sean Royal and Black Cat, Tatsutoshi Goto B Super Strong Machine DQ, Kengo Kimura and Shiro Koshinaka and Michiyoshi Ohara B Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Kido and Satoshi Kojima, Hercules Fernandez and Scott Norton B Jushin Liger and Wild Pegasus, Shinya Hashimoto and Masa Chono B Akira Nagami and Takayuki Izuka, Keiji Muto and Hiroshi Hazi B Hawk and Power Warrior. October 19 Yonezawa, All Japan, 2550 Sellout, Mitsuo Momoda B Satoru Asako, Mighty Inoue B Masao Inoue, Danny Spivey B Takao Mori, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Jun Akiyama B Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Masa Fuchi 2318, Dory Funk and Tabin Honda B Johnny Ace and Kendall Wyndham, non-title, The Eagle and the Patriot B Dan Crawford and Doug Furness, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Yoshinari Ogawa B Steve Williams and Big Bubba Rogers and Richard Slinger, Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase and Joel Deaton B Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. October 19 Ichihara, FMW 2650 Sellout, Dark Ranger B Kuroda, Masato Tanaka B Mr. Chin, Crusher Matamari B Yuki Nabano, The Gladiator B Damien, Battle Ranger B Masaru Toy DQ, Supreme Mac and Shark Tsuchiya and Combat Toyota B Yuki Nabano and Miwa Sato and Megumi Kudo, Big Titan and Ricky Fuji B Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke, No Rope Barbed Wire Street Fight Tornado Deathmatch, Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako and Onita Jr. B Mr. Pogo and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and Hasaka. October 19 Tokyo Korakuen Hall, Wings, 1500, Fukumentaro B Ryo Maike, Zulima B Janet, Silver King B 1 Steringer, Cuban Assassin, David Cannell, and Ricky Santana B Hideo Takayama and Nobutaka Araya, WWC Junior HWT title, Masayoshi Motegi B El Texano to win title, Freddy Krueger B Leatherface, Falls Count Anywhere, Geto and Jato B Yukihiro Kanemura and Shoji Nakamaki. October 19 Miyagi, Michinoku Pro, 660 Sellout, Wellington Wilkins Jr. B Akihiro Hoshikawa, Leopardo Negro B Masato Yakashiji, Taka Michinoku B Akihito Yonakawa DQ, Tarako and Superboy and Super Delphin B Jiraiya and Oriental and Shiryu, Great Sasuke and Sato B Grand Naniwa and Jinsei Shinzaki. October 20 Burlington, Vermont, WWF Superstars Taping, 2500 Sellout, Non-Squash Results, Razor Ramon and Marty Jannetty B IRS and Diesel DQ, Rick Steiner B Jacques Roju, Adam Baum B Jannetty Core, IC Title, Ramon B Rick Martel Core, Bret Hart B IRS DQ, Bret Hart B Jerry Lawler, WWF Title, Undertaker B Yokozuna DQ, Lex Luger B Ludwig Borga. October 20 Koriyama, All Japan, 1800 Sellout, Mighty Inoue B Masao Inoue, Johnny Ace B Tabin Honda, Dory Funk B Takao Mori, Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Masa Fuchi B Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momoda, The Patriot and the Eagle B Joel Deaton and Danny Spivey, Dan Crawford and Doug Furness B Kenta Kobashi and Satoru Asako, Steve Williams and Big Bubba Rogers and Richard Slinger be Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase and Kendall Windham, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Yoshinari Ogawa be Mitsuharu Misawa and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi and Jun Akiyama 2332. October 20th Mitsuya, New Japan, 2330, Yuji Nagata be Tatsuhito Takaiwa, El Samurai be Shinjiro Otani, The Barbarian be Sean Royal, Jushin Liger and Wild Pegasus be Kunyaki Kobayashi and Kengo Kimura, Hercules Fernandez and Scott Norton be Keiji Muto and Manabu Nakanishi, Hawk and Power Warrior be Hiroshi Hazi and Black Cat, Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Kido be Takayuki Iizuka and Akira Nagami, Shiro Koshinaka and Tatsutoshi Goto and Michiyoshi Ohara be Shinya Hashimoto and Masa Chono and Satoshi Kojima. October 20th Katsuyama, FMW 2599 sellout, Dark Ranger be Matsuyama, Kuroda be Mr. Chin, Yuki Nabano be Miyagawa, Big Titan be Masato Tanaka, Combat Toyota and Crusher Matamari and Sapri Mac be Keiko Iwama and Nurse Nakamura and Megumi Kudo, Shark Tsuchiya be Miwasato, Tarzan Goto and Onita Jr. and Battle Ranger be Masaru Toy and Riki Fuji and the Gladiator, No Rope Barbed Wire Street Fight Tornado Deathmatch, Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako and Mr. Ganasuke be Mr. Pogo and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and Hasaka. October 20th Toyohashi, Wings, Ryo Miyake be Hideo Takayama, Zulima and El Texano be Janet and Silver King, Geto be One Staringer, Freddy Krueger be Nobutaka Araya, Leatherface be Jado DQ, El Texano 1 Battle Royal, Bunkhouse Match, Yukihiro Kanemura and Shoji Nakamaki be Cuban Assassin and Ricky Santana. October 20th Miyagi, All Japan Women, 1480, prelim results unavailable, Toshio Yamada and Kyoko Inoue be Atsuko Mita and Mima Shimoda, Yumiko Hata be Saki Hasegawa, Manami Toyota and Suzuka Minami be Asia Kong and Numaki. October 20th Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, East Coast Wrestling Federation, Metalhead be Powerhouse Chuck, Gino Caruso and Special K and Rocky Jones be Executioners and Kodiak Bear, Inferno Kid be Christian Greed, Devon Storm DDQ Jackknife Johnny, Blaster and Punisher be Mickey Mayhem and Dennis Knight. October 21st Amherst, Massachusetts, WWF, 1500, Owen Hart be Bastion Booger 1 star, Head Shrinkers be Smoking Guns 3 stars, IC title, Razor Ramon be IRS 1 1/4 stars, WWF title, Yokozuna be The Undertaker 2 1/4 stars, WWF tag title, Quebecers be Men on Mission 2 stars, Bret Hart be Bam Bam Bigelow 2 3/4 stars, Lex Luger be Ludwig Borga 1/2 star. October 21st Yaizu, All Japan, 3050 sellout, Johnny Ace be Takao Mori, Dory Funk and Tabin Honda be Masao Inoue and Mighty Inoue, Dan Crawford and Doug Furness be Jun Akiyama and Satoru Asako, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momota be Ryuma Izumida and Haruka Eigen and Masa Fuchi, The Eagle and the Patriot be Danny Spivey and Kendall Windham, Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi be Steve Williams and Big Bubba Rogers and Richard Slinger, Akira Tao and Toshiaki Kawada and Yoshinari Ogawa be Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase and Joel Deaton. October 21st Shimonoseki, New Japan, 2150, Shinjiro Otani be Tatsuhito Takaiwa, Takayuki Iizuka be Yuji Nagata, Akira Nagami be Satoshi Kojima, Jushin Liger and Wild Pegasus be El Samurai and Sean Royal, Scott Norton and Hercules Fernandez be Hiroshi Hazi and Black Cat, Hawk and Power Warrior be The Barbarian and Masa Saito, Kunyaki Kobayashi and Tatsutoshi Goto be Keiji Muto and Osamu Kido, Tatsumi Fujinami and Masa Chono and Shinya Hashimoto be Shiro Koshinaka and Kengo Kimura and Michiyoshi Ohara. October 21st Soka, FMW, 4095 sellout, Dark Ranger be Kuroda, Yuki Nabano be Nurse Nakamura, Masato Tanaka be Mr. Chen, Big Titan be Katsutoshi Niyama, Hasaka and Masaru Toy be Onita Jr. and Battle Ranger, Shark Tsuchiya be Crusher Matamari, Miwasato and Megumi Kudo beat Sapri Mac and Combat Toyota, Tarzan Goto be Riki Fuji, Street Fight, The Gladiator and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and Mr. Pogo be Mr. Ganasuke and Samba Asako and Atsushi Onita. October 21st Indianapolis, Championship Wrestling from Indiana, 847, Chris Michaels be PC Austin 1 1/2 star, Sonny Rogers be Johnny Mercedes 2 stars, Todd Morton and Michaels be Flash Flanagan and Mike Samples 2.5 stars, Eric Fontaine be Mr. Clyde 1 star, Brian Lee be Rex Hargrove 3 stars, Tracy Smothers be Rod Price 3 3/4 stars. October 21st Tokoname, Wings, Ryo Miyake d Hideo Takayama, Zulima be Janet, Ricky Santana and Cuban Assassin B1 Staringer and Shoji Nakamaki, Leatherface B Nobutaka Araya, Geto and Jado B Silver King and El Texano, Freddy Krueger B Yukihiro Kanemura. October 21st Tawada, Michinoku Pro, 276, Leopardo Negro B Masato Yakashiji, Wellington Wilkins Jr. B Akira Hoshikawa, Elimination Tag, Jinsei Shinzaki and Superboy and Tarako and Akihito Yonakawa B Shiryu and Taka Michinoku and Jiraiya and Sato, UWF Super Welterweight Title, Super Delphin B Oriental, Great Sasuke B Grand Naniwa. October 21st Omura, All Japan Women, 1100, Prelim results unavailable, Manami Toyota and Akira Hokuto B Atsuko Mita and Mima Shimoda, Asia Kong and Yumiko Hata B Kyoko Inoue and Toshio Yamada. October 21st Plant City Florida, Plant City Wrestling Federation, Don York B Hassan Farouk, Luscious Luke B Max the Destroyer, Nuclear Assassin B Randy Fuller, Raul Mata and Luis Estillo B Rick Thames and Sonny T. Core, Rocky Johnson B Jerry Flynn. October 22nd Pittsburgh, WWF, 9800, Owen Hart B Bastion Booger 1 star, Bret Hart B Jerry Lawler 3¼ stars, Head Shrinkers B Smoking Guns 3 stars, Lex Luger B Ludwig Borga 1/2 of 1 star, WWF Tag Title, Quebecers B Men on Mission 1 star, IC Title, Razor Ramon B IRS Core 2¼ stars, WWF Title, Yokozuna B The Undertaker 3 stars. October 22nd Phoenix, WCW, 2,000/Free Fairgrounds Show, Steve Regal D2 Cold Scorpio 1½ star, Davey Boy Smith B Sid Vicious DQ 1 star, non-title, Big Van Vader B Cactus Jack 3½ stars, non-title, Sting and Ric Flair B Nasty Boys 2½ stars. October 22nd New York, International Wrestling All-Stars, 680 sellout, Mike Norman B Mondo Vile, Luis Piccoli B Bobby Blaze, Conan L Barbaro B Spicoli, Tasmaniac B Chris Condito, Power Twins and Sunny Beach B Metal Maniac and Tom Burton and Dennis Knight, Conan B Sabu Core, Medusa B Malia Hasaka, Scott Putski B Greg Valentine DQ, Terry Funk B Kevin Sullivan DQ. October 22nd Yamaguchi, New Japan, 2380 sellout, Satoshi Kojima B Tatsuhito Takaiwa, Akira Nagami B Manabu Nakanishi, Takayuki Izuka B Wild Pegasus, Jushin Liger and Shinjiro Otani B Yuji Nagata and El Samurai, Kengo Kimura and Kunyaki Kobayashi B Keiji Muto and Black Cat, Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Kido B Masa Saito and Sean Royal, Hawk and Power Warrior B Shiro Koshinaka and Michiyoshi Ohara, Shinya Hashimoto and Masa Chono and Hiroshi Hazi B Scott Norton and Hercules Fernandez and the Barbarian. October 22nd Tagagyo, All Japan, 2200 sellout, Mighty Inoue B Masao Inoue, Tabin Honda and Dory Funk B Joel Deaton and Takawa Mori, The Eagle and the Patriot B Satoru Asako and Jun Akiyama, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momoda B Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Masa Fuchi, Johnny Ace and Danny Spivey B Dan Crawford and Doug Furness, Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase and Kendall Windham B Steve Williams and Big Bubba Rogers and Richard Slinger, Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi B Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Yoshinari Ogawa. October 22nd Arena Mexico in Mexico City, EMLL, Brazo de Plata and El Brazo and Blue Demon Jr. B Masacre and Cajo Zion Jacques made 2 stars, Black Magic and Dr. Wagner Jr. and Emilio Charles Jr. B Dandy and Rayo de Jalisco Jr. and Canadian Vampire Casanova 2½ stars, King Haku B Pierroth Jr. DQ 3/4 star. October 22nd Takasaki, FMW, 2547 sellout, Kuroda B Mr. Chin, Combat Toyota B Nurse Nakamura, Big Titan B Mr. Genasuke, Miwa Sato B Yuki Nabano, Dark Ranger and Masaru Toy B Masato Tanaka and Battle Ranger, Shark Tsuchiya and Crusher Matamari B Keiko Awam and Megumi Kudo, Tarzan Goto and Katsutoshi Niyama B Hasaka and Riki Fuji, No Rope Barbed Wire Street Fight Tornado Deathmatch, The Gladiator and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and Mr. Pogo B Atsushi Onita and Onita Jr. and Samba Asako. October 22nd Johnson City, Tennessee, WCW, 100, Charlie Norris B Tex Slashinger 1¼ stars, Big Caboose B Shanghai Pierce DQ 1/2 of 1 star, Harlem Heat B Ice Train and Lightning 1½ star, Michael Hayes B Tom Zank Dud, Rick Rude B Eric Watts 2½ stars, Arnold Anderson B Brian Pillman 3½ stars. October 22nd Whitewood, Virginia, SMW, 250, Tim Horner B Dirty White Boy, Steve and Scott Armstrong B Bruise Brothers, SMW Tag Title, Rock and Roll Express B Heavenly Bodies, SMW title, Tracy Smothers B Brian Lee DQ, Smothers 1 Battle Royal. October 22, Dallas Sportatorium, GWF, $685.92 paid, Mike Davis B Black Bart, Iceman King Parsons B Johnny Longhorn, Rod Price B Bigfoot Sanders, Lumberjack Strap Match, Chris Adams DDQ Tim Brooks, Stephen Dane and Chaz Taylor B Vito Mussolini and Guido Falcone DQ. October 22, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, ECW, Super Destroyer No. 1 B Max Thrasher, Don E. Allen and Mr. X, Larry Winters, B Hell Riders, Sandman B Chris Michaels, Mr. Hughes B Johnny Gunn, Jimmy Snuka B Warlord, Wolfman B HD Rider, Warlord 1 Battle Royal. October 22, Minato, BC, ICW, 1500, Olson D Bloody Wayne, Michelle Starr and Vern Siebert and Mike Miller and Mike Roselli B Firefighter Adrian and Riptide Rockford and Billy Two Eagles and Moondog Moretti, Earthquake John Tenda B The Basher, Rocky and Bobby Delasera B Judjeet Singh, Jason Anderson, and Gama Singh, Bushwhackers B Colonel De Beers and Beef Wellington, Jim Neidhart to Rick Martel. October 22, Sakaki, Wings, Fukumentaro B Ryo Maig, Zulima B Janet, Masayoshi Motegi B Hideo Takayama, Silver King and El Texano B Ghetto and Jado DQ, Freddy Krueger B Nobutaka Araya, Bunkhouse Match, Yukihiro Kanemura and Shoji Nakamaki and One Staringer B Cuban Assassin and Ricky Santana and Leatherface. October 22, Tokyo, PWC, Kishin Kawabata B The Viper, Watanabe B Min, Kazu B Kawabata, Watanabe B Kazu, Shinichi Nakano B Watanabe, Wild Wakamatsu B George Takano, Kaur X B Shunji Takano. October 22, Albemarle, North Carolina, PWF, 119, Super Ninja B Ravishing Randy, Flaming Youth B Killdozer, American GI B Russian Assassin, George South B Star Rider, Austin Steele B Italian Stallion DQ, Youth 1 Battle Royal. October 22, Mount Washington, Kentucky, Tri-State Wrestling, Dan Childers B Texas Hangman, Jerry Faith, Gigolo Joe B Todd Morton, Mike Samples B Danny Davis, Bar Room Brawlers, Doug Vines and Troy Haste, B Steve and Bill Marino, The Sheik, George Weingeroff, B Moondog Spot, Sheriff Shot Dooley B Samples. October 23, Tokyo Budokan Hall, All Japan, 16,300 sellout, Mitsuo Momoda and Mighty Inoue B Masao Inoue and Yoshinari Ogawa, Dan Crawford and Doug Furness B Tsuyoshi Kikuchi and Satoru Asako, Dory Funk and Tabin Honda B Joel Deaton and Kendall Wyndham, Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta and Rusher Kimura B Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Masa Fuchi, Steve Williams and Big Bubba Rogers B Danny Spivey and Johnny Ace, The Eagle and the Patriot B Akira Tao and Takao Mori, Ted DiBiase B Jun Akiyama, Toshiaki Kawada B Kena Kobashi 2937, Triple Crown Mitsuharu Misawa B Stan Hansen 2210. October 23, Baltimore, WWF, 5800, Owen Hart B Bastion Booger, IC title, Razor Ramon B IRS Corps, Head Shrinkers B Smoking Guns, Lex Luger B Ludwig Borga, Bret Hart B Jerry Lawler, Men on Mission B Axel Rotten and the Executioner, WWF title, Yokozuna B The Undertaker. October 23, Niyaj, New Japan, 2500, Yuji Nagata B Shinjiro Otani, El Samurai B Tatsuhito Takaiwa, Akira Nagami and Takayuki Izuka B Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi, Kengo Kimura and Kunyaki Kobayashi B Osamu Kido and Black Cat, Keiji Muto B Sean Royal, Hawk and Power Warrior B Masa Chono and Jushin Liger, Scott Norton and Hercules Fernandez B Shiro Koshinaka and Michiyoshi Ohara, Tatsumi Fujinami and Shinya Hashimoto and Hiroshi Hazi B The Barbarian and Masa Saito and Wild Pegasus. October 23, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, SMW, 300, Tim Horner B Dirty White Boy DQ, Ricky Morton B Jimmy Del Rey, Robert Gibson B Ron Bruce DQ, Steve Armstrong B Tom Pritchard, SMW title, Tracy Smothers B Brian Lee DQ, Rock and Roll Express 1-4 Corners Tag Match from Armstrongs, Heavenly Bodies, and Bruise Brothers. October 23, Fukuoka, Rings, 7,526 sellout, Willie Peters B Yoshihisa Yamamoto, Teriel B Peter Uria, Herman Renning B Hans Nyman, Folk Han B Masayoshi Naruse, Dirk Leon Frey B Willie Williams, Duev B Andrei Kopolov, Akira Maeda B Sodergachev. October 23, Hamamatsu, FMW, 4,570 sellout, Dark Ranger B Kuroda, Crusher Matamari B Yuki Nabano, Masato Tanaka B Mr. Chin, Big Titan B Katsutoshi Niyama, Combat Toyota and Shark Tsuchiya and Tatsupuri Mac B Megumi Kudo and Miwa Sato and Nurse Nakamura, Mitsuhiro Matsunaga be Onita Jr., Tarzan Goto and Battle Ranger be Riki Fuji and Masaru Toi, No Rope Barbed Wire Street Fight Tornado Deathmatch, Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako and Mr. Ganasuke be Mr. Pogo and the Gladiator and Hasaka. October 23 Moji, All Japan Women, 1230, prelim results unavailable, Kaoru Ito be Takako Inoue, Kyoko Inoue and Toshio Yamada be Yumiko Hata and Manami Toyota. October 23 Sumkawa, Michinoku Pro, Leopardo Negro be Akihiro Hoshikawa, Wellington Wilkins Jr. be Akihito Yonakawa, Superboy and Tarako be Oriental and Shiryu, Great Sasuke and Taka Michinoku and Sato be Super Delphin and Jinsei Shinzaki and Grand Naniwa. October 23 Vancouver, BC, ICW, 1066, Michelle Star be Buddy Wayne, Velvet McIntyre be Iron Maiden, Firefighter Adrian and Moondog Moretti and Riptide Rockford and Billy Two Eagles be Mike Miller and Vern Siebert and Ole Olsen and the Terminator DQ, Earthquake John Tena be Basher, Bushwhackers be Colonel De Beers and Beef Wellington, Jim Neidhart to Rick Martel, Street Fight, Bad News Alan NC Diamond Timothy Flowers. October 23 Wakefield, Massachusetts, CWA, 1500, Crystal Blue and Mighty Drew be Little Louie and Ray Odyssey be Flex Lavender, Tasmaniac be Al Mascaro, Double Trouble be in turns to win CWA tag titles, Tony Atlas be Tommy Dreamer, Vic Steamboat be Iron Sheik to win CWA title. October 23 Champion Ohio, IWA, 200, Rom Cumberledge to Cy Youngblood, Lord Zoltan be JT Lightning, Barry Horowitz be Preston Steele to win US title, Irish Leprechaun be Little Ninja, TC Reynolds be Scott Summers, Steel 1 Battle Royal. October 23 Taylorsville, North Carolina, PWF, 152, Texas Outlaw be Randy Sledge, Black Scorpion be Cruel Connection No. 2, American GI be Russian Assassin, George South and Terry Austin be Star Rider and Flaming Youth, Italian Stallion be Austin Steele, Stallion be South. October 23 Tower City, Pennsylvania, Galaxy Wrestling Federation, SD Jones be Chris Evans, Johnny Gunn and be Johnny Handsome and Ab Buddha Singh, Haiti Kid be Tricky Nicky, Mr. Hughes 1 Battle Royal, Chris Condito be Flex Wheeler, Kimala be Papa Shango DQ, Who's He the Clown, Steve Kieran, be Hughes. October 23 Central City, Kentucky, Tri-State Wrestling, Billy Travis be Chris Michaels, Moon Warrior be New Dog, Psycho Sam be Kentucky Trapper, Mr. Clyde be Dan Seals, Madman Pondo and Tommy Sledge be Dr. Feelgood and Eric Fontaine, Mike Samples and Dan Shannon be Bounty Hunters. October 24 Hershey, Pennsylvania, WWF, 3500, Owen Hart be Bastion Booger, Bret Hart be Bam Bam Bigelow, Lex Luger be Ludwig Borga, WWF title, Yokozuna be The Undertaker, WWF tag title, Quebecers be Men on Mission, IC title, Razor Ramon be IRS Corps, Head Shrinkers be Smoking Guns. October 24 Dallas, Big D, 122, Alex Porto be Chuck West, Elimination Tag Match, Black Bart and Bill Irwin and Scott Braddock and Gary Young and Rod Price be Terry Sims and Action Jackson and Mr. and Mike Davis and Chris Adams, Mr. B Bart, Adams be Braddock, Sims be Young DQ, Jackson be Irwin DQ, Davis be Price. October 24 Warren, Ohio, IWA, 375, TC Reynolds be Cy Youngblood, Scott Summers be Ron Cumberledge Core, Preston Steele be Barry Horowitz to regain US title, Little Chucky be Irish Leprechaun, Leprechaun 1 Battle Royal, Bushwhackers be Lord Zoltan and Psycho Mike. October 25 Memphis, USWA, Little Eagle be Midget D, Sweet Georgia Brown be Miss Texas, One Night Tourney for USWA tag titles, PG-13 be American Eagles, Moondogs be Jeff Gaylord and Mike Anthony, Jerry Lawler and Red Knight be Doomsday and Reggie be Fine, Jeff Jarrett and Brian Christopher be Doink the Clown, Steve Lombardi, and Coco Ware DQ, Lawler and Knight be Moondogs, Jarrett and Christopher be PG-13, Jarrett and Christopher be Lawler and Knight to win titles. Special thanks to David Skolnick, Chris Evers, Gary Langevin, Steve Mash, Shelby Adcock, Steve Dr. Lucha Sims, Ray Gore, Brian Hildebrand, David Doyle, Shannon Rose, Ken Arden, Dave Shearer, Tony Sabath, Tim Whitehead, Tim Knoll, Lena Sargent, Matt Kale, Tommy Firo, Freddie Fargo, Gary Langevin, Jack Thompson, John Lawson, Dan Paris, Stuart Kemp, Tim Harshman, Gabe Sapolsky, Norm Connors, Joel Lerman, Louis Curry. EMLL UWA. A lot of maneuvering going on behind the scenes involving the country's highest paid wrestler, Canadian Vampire. Vampire, who is currently earning $2,000 per match on weekends and $1,500 on weeknights, which would make him probably the highest paid active wrestler in the world right now with the exception of Sting and Vader, is telling wrestlers he's either going to retire at the end of the year, or cut back his schedule to 2 shows per week, to concentrate on being in a rock and roll band. In the ring, they're continuing to build to a hair versus hair match with Vampire against Black Magic, which is tentatively scheduled for December. With crowds hovering at about 1,000 every Sunday at El Toreo, one of its worst runs in history, they shot more big angles on October 17th to lead to an attempt to run a major show on October 24th. The semi-final was the first meeting of longtime tag team partners Silver King and El Texano in a trios match. King, who turned heel on Texano when the team broke up on October 10th, teamed with El Signo and Negro Navarro against Texano and Super Astro and Gran Hamada. During the third fall, Signo and Navarro turned on King and Texano joined them. Signo, Navarro and Texano were one of the most famous trios in Mexico as the original Death Missionaries in the late 70s and 80s until Texano turned face on them and had a long and bloody feud with them, impounding on his nephew. The brawl included stiff chair and 2x4 shots and ended with King and Texano both bloody and challenging one another to stipulation matches. Unfortunately, the two immediately left for Japan after the match for a Wings tour as tag team partners. Main event was a Pareis Incredibles match, face plus heel versus face plus heel, with Dos Caras and Yamato versus Kanek and King Haku ending when Haku and Kanek broke up and lost in straight falls to set up a singles match on October 24th. Villano 3 returns from AAA on that show as well, but as a heel for the first time ever, teaming with Brothers 4 and 5 against Astro and Enrique Vieira and Vampire. Negro Casas is handling a lot of the booking for EMLL. Newcomer Oso Negro, 6'4", 240. Went to the Olympics in wrestling but is green as a pro. Rayo de Jalisco Jr. and Conan of AAA are having a war of words in the media. Rayo called Conan a paper idol and Conan countered calling Rayo a toilet paper idol and claimed the only fans Rayo draws come to the arena disguised as empty seats. A Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame building in Mexico City opened October 11th. La Diabolica vacated her Mexican women's title now that she has the CMLL World title. All Japan. The tour ended on October 23 with another sellout of 16,300 at Budokan Hall in Tokyo. Mitsuharu Misawa retained the Triple Crown, pinning Stan Hansen in 22:10 with a small package. I don't have a first-hand report on the show, however from what we've heard, Misawa legit broke his breastbone during the match and fans knew he had nothing left. I guess the finish must have not looked convincing since it was heavily booed. The semi-final to determine the number 1 contender for the Triple Crown saw Toshiaki Kawada pin Kenta Kobashi in 29:37 in what was said to have been the best singles match the two have had thus far. No word on if Misawa's injury will cause him to miss the tag team tournament, but if he does miss the tournament, it'll severely damage the tour and tournament since he's the most popular wrestler in the promotion. It'll also pretty much guarantee before the thing even starts what the finals will be, since it'll leave just 2 teams, Hansen and Ted DiBiase and Kawada and Akira Tao, with any chance of winning the thing. The Misawa-Kawada Triple Crown match probably won't be taking place until late January. With Misawa having beaten Kawada in their last 3 singles meetings, the idea that it's Kawada's turn and that spells title change will make the match an easy sellout. Fritz von Erich appeared as a guest on the show, and it also included the return of Jumbo Tsuruta. Jumbo worked about 3 minutes tops in the comedy match, teaming with Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura to beat Ryuma Izumida and Haruka Eigen and Masa Fuchi. Except for one knee to the chin, Tsuruta did nothing but punch and kick, and our reports were that he looked to be nowhere near ready to return to the spotlight. Tabin Honda, who debuted earlier this month, is already starting to get something of a push. Honda, who represented Japan as a super heavy in the 1984, 1988 and 1992 Olympic Games in Greco-Roman, teamed with Dory Funk on several shows and got to score pins on guys like Masao Inoue and Kendall Windham. TV ratings on October 10th drew a 3.6, which is a good number since the show started 30 minutes later than usual, which means 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. Rating on October 17th was a 2.6, but the show started 1 hour later than usual, so that wasn't considered a bad number either. The Heavenly Bodies will be coming in during an early 1994 tour. New Japan. As of October 23rd, the standings in the tag team tournament were, the Hellraisers with 10 points, Michiyoshi Ohara and Shiro Koshinaka with 8, the Jurassic Powers, Scott Norton and Hercules Fernandez, and Keiji Muto and Hiroshi Hazu with 6, Masa Chono and Shinya Hashimoto and Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Kido with 5, Wild Pegasus and Jushin Liger with 4, Takayuki Iizuka and Akira Nagami in the Barbarian and Masa Saito with 2 and Sean Royal and Brad Armstrong scrapped due to Armstrong's neck injury. Finals are November 4th at Tokyo Sumo Hall. There were 2 upsets during the week, with October 19th in Hiroshima having the Hellraisers lose only their 3rd match since forming a team to Muto and Hazi when Hazi pinned Power Warrior, and on October 18th in Totori saw Fujinami and Kido beat the Jurassic Powers when Fujinami pinned Fernandez with a backslide. Word seems to be getting around about the week house shows this tour as only 2 of the 6 house shows this week sold out. Other Japan notes. Akira Maeda's return to the ring after being out 9 months after reconstructive knee surgery drew a sellout 7,526 to the Fukuoka International Center on October 23 as he made Sota Gachev submit in 6-16 to a half crab. A newcomer named Duev seems to be being groomed for an eventual main event against Maeda as he made Andrei Kopylov, who is one of the top guys in the group, submit in the semifinal. Wings opened its new tour on October 19 at Tokyo Korakuen Hall with Masayoshi Motegi winning the WWC Junior Heavyweight title from El Texano with a German suplex in 1756. After the match they did a shoot angle with Yoshiaki Yatsu and Shinichi Nakano of SPWF hitting the ring claiming that Motegi had promised them he'd be jumping to their promotion, so what was he doing winning a belt for another group? The SPWF main event in the same building on October 28 is scheduled as Yatsu and Hiroshi Shimada, formerly a Wings prelim wrestler, against Motegi and Nakano. Even though El Texano and Silver King are feuding in Mexico, they worked as a tag team for Wings. Great Punk returned to FMW this time as a babyface, using his real name of Katsutoshi Niyama, mainly lose mid-card bouts to the likes of Big Titan. FMW's main events with 6-mans matching Mitsuhiro Matsunaga's team against Atsushi Onita's team continue to draw big crowds. FMW will be holding a tournament in January to crown a World Women's Champion, although they already have a title billed as such held by Combat Toyota, and will bring in Fabulous Moolah to present the belt to the winner. They are bringing in Monster Ripper and Lola Gonzalez from Mexico plus a few women from the US along with the Japanese regulars. Akira Hokuto returned after the WrestleMarinepiad show on October 21. War's next tour is November 8 to November 11 with foreigners Tommy Rich, Rocky Aokia, Dan Silio, a former pro football player from Florida making his debut, and a wrestler only called X who is said to be the cousin of Mil Mascaras and will feud with Ultimo Dragon. Most of the main events consist of War vs Skinheads, with November 11 at Korakuen Hall headlined by Genichiro Tenryu and Super Strong Machine vs Shiro Koshinaka and Tatsutoshi Goto. Full, billed as a total Mexican wrestling experience, debuts December 16 and December 17 at Korakuen Hall. The entire card will consist of EMLL and UWA wrestlers, plus the ring announcer will be brought in from Mexico and announced in Spanish, which makes about as much sense as having an English announcer at a lucha show, and the referee will be Karloff Lagarde Sr. On the shows will be Gran Hamada, Kendo, Oro, Emilio Charles Jr., Bestia Salvaje, Guerrero de la Muerte, Ninja Samurai, La Flecha, Oriental, and Taraco. Tickets for the Pancrase show headlined by the mixed match of Minoru Suzuki vs World Heavyweight Kickboxing Champ Maurice Smith match on November 8 have a strong advance with the expensive tickets gone. October 12 All Japan Women's Television Show which aired starting at 2:40 am still did a 1.4 rating. Japanese Television Rundown. September 19 All Japan, 1. Kawada and Tao beat Williams and Slinger in 16 minutes when Tao pinned Slinger with a Nadawa choke slam. 2 1/4 stars. 2. Hansen and DiBiase and Tracy Smothers beat Misawa and Kobashi and Akiyama in 17 minutes. Kobashi took the beating most of the way. Finish saw DiBiase put the Cobra, or $1 Million Dream, on Akiyama, then keep the hold and also do a Russian leg sweep for the pin. 3 1/2 stars. 3. Fuji pinned Slinger to retain the PWF Junior Heavyweight title. Only the finish aired, which looked okay, but not that exciting. 4. Crawford and Furness beat Eagle and Patriot to win the Asian Tag Team titles. Crawford pinned Eagle after 3 Tiger Drivers. Only the finish aired but what aired looked very good. 5. Misawa and Kobashi beat Williams and Smothers. Kobashi again took punishment most of the way. At one point they were on the floor and Williams pressed Kobashi overhead and dropped him onto the guardrail. Smothers looked really good on this tour and is one of the most underrated workers around when it comes to business reputation. He's a lot better here than a lot of people with reputations for being great workers. Kobashi ended up pinning Smothers after a moonsault. 3 1/2 stars. 6. Kawada and Tao and Ogawa beat Hansen and DiBiase and Deaton when Tao pinned Deaton with a Nadawa. As usual, the hottest action was Hansen vs Kawada, with Hansen destroying Kawada with a chair shot early on. Later, Kawada made a big comeback on Hansen 3¼ stars. October 2nd, New Japan, 1. Hulk Hogan and Great Muta beat Hellraisers in 15:23. Hogan worked the first 440. Hogan got a great reaction coming out, but the match itself was dead for a dream match. Highlight was supposed to be Hawk pressing Hogan overhead but couldn't get him completely up. Muta took punishment most of the rest of the way. They went for the finisher where Power had Muta on his shoulders and Hawk was on top for the clothesline, but Muta blew the mist in Hawk's eyes and cradled Power for a near fall. Muta then blew the mist in Power's eyes and tagged Hogan, who hit the Axe Bomber clothesline for the pin. The post-match angle with Antonio Inoki was edited off television because New Japan doesn't want to show Inoki's face on television because of his name having a bad image because of his political scandals. There was a lot of interest before the match started, but very little once it got going. The Hellraisers have been a big disappointment as a team in the ring, and when Muta paints his face, he's a different wrestler. 1½ star, 2. Tenryu beat Hazy in 1907 with a Mexican surfboard-type submission move called the War Special. It largely appeared the reason for this match was to get over the move as a new finisher so it can be used for a big heat spot in future main events. The psychology in this match was excellent. There weren't a lot of moves, but every move was over big. This match pretty well saved what had been a dead major show, and it was all Hazy's doing. New Japan right now is funny because its top veteran names are all simply names with big reputations rather than a lot of substance, but many of the guys on the next level and underneath have all the substance but not the name value. 3¾ stars. October 3rd, All Japan, 1. Patriot and Eagle beat Dory Funk and Amori when Patriot pinned Amori with a full Nelson drop. Amori was improved a lot over the past 9 months. He started out on equal footing with Eric Watts and didn't show any more potential than that. But he's made much faster progress. Only the last 3 minutes aired, which looked pretty good, too. Williams and Bubba and Slinger beat Misawa and Kobashi and Akiyama in 1820 when Bubba pinned Akiyama with the Bossman Slam. The hottest action was still Kobashi vs. Williams. 3½ stars, 3. Hansen and DiBiase and Kendall Windham beat Kawada and Tao and Ogawa. Windham was the youngest wrestler in the match, 26, and looks like the oldest, which is a great testimonial for avoiding prison at all costs. He's almost completely bald and kind of looks like Dan Spivey on the Bahamian diet. Hansen pinned Ogawa in 13:48 with a power bomb. Disappointing for an All Japan main event. 2¾ stars. October 10th, All Japan, 1. Hansen and Spivey and DiBiase beat Williams and Bubba and Slinger in 14:30 when Hansen pinned Slinger with a power bomb. 2¾ stars, 2. Kawada and Tao and Fuchi beat Misawa and Kobashi and Kikuchi in 27:20. Kikuchi took the punishment early, including being bodyslammed through the press table by Tao. Kobashi and Kawada chopped the hell out of each other when in together. Pretty much the usual match these teams have, not at the top level, but still excellent. Kawada pinned Kikuchi after a backdrop driver and lariat. 4 stars. October 12th, All Japan Women, 1. Shinobu Kandori and Yasha Kurenai of LLPW beat Takako Inoue and Saki Hasegawa. Kandori now works a Fujiwara style, which fits her since the fans are all aware she was ranked in the top 3 in the world in judo before becoming a pro wrestler. The All Japan Women sold great for her to put her over as a real submission master. After some good near falls, Kandori caught Hasegawa in one of the most believable looking sleepers ever. 3½ stars, 2. Manami Toyota pinned Mayumi Ozaki. This match went 20 minutes but was edited down to 8 minutes on television. Toyota was technically awesome, but she got over more to the wrestlers from the different promotions who were watching at ringside and popping for their spots than to the fans. Toyota used the Orihara moonsault as the highlight. Finish saw Ozaki continually reverse Toyota's attempts at doing the Japanese Ocean Cyclone suplex into near falls of her own before Toyota finally hit the move for the pin. 4 stars, 3. Asia Kong pinned Akira Hokuto. This was supposed to be for the WWA title, but Hokuto said the belt was too important for an injured wrestler to challenge for. Hokuto's was coming back from recent knee surgery and also a broken back and clearly wasn't 100%, but she still did a flip splash and drop kick off the top rope. After the match, Kong made a speech about how Hokuto was the gutsiest and most courageous wrestler who has ever lived and cried herself in admiration of Hokuto. Seeing a killer monster heel like Kong cry is a contradiction to the gimmick, but in its own way it probably made the match memorable. This was another 20-minute match edited down to 5:30, so the rating probably isn't fair in this case, but what aired wasn't anything special. 2.5 stars. October 16, JWP, 1. Cutie Suzuki pinned Commando Borishoy in 24-10 with a dragon suplex. Borishoy is a good flyer, but her actual wrestling isn't believable. She blew out her ankle missing a tope but still did all her flying spots on the bad leg afterwards. 2.5 stars. 2. Plum Mariko pinned Fuseo Noki with a dropkick off the top rope in 13:42. Noki is really green. 3/4 star. 3. Ozaki pinned Numiki of All Japan in 1912 with a power bomb. Numiki's gimmick with the butch haircut and carrying a shovel to the ring is one of the goofiest in all of wrestling. Match wasn't that good, although at times Ozaki showed she had a lot of wrestling talent and put on a mat wrestling clinic. 2.25 stars. 4. Devil Masami and Reggie Bennett beat Hikari Minami Fukuoka and Dynamite Kansai in 22:56. Bennett was a mainstream celebrity in Japan several weeks back doing a commercial for a sports drink. She's gotten huge since that time, to the point even Kansai looked like a lightweight next to her. Match was very good when Bennett wasn't in, with Fukuoka's work being the highlight. It was generally okay when Bennett was in, although the heat always went way down when Masami tagged out. Masami pinned Fukuoka with a power bomb. 3.5 stars. USWA. They held a one-night tourney for the USWA tag belts on October 25 in Memphis, which ended up with Jeff Jarrett and Brian Christopher versus Jerry Lawler and the Red Knight as the finals. The match started scientifically, but soon Christopher pulled trunks, and when the ref asked Jarrett if he did it, Jarrett lied and said no. Both teams started brawling from that point on, and Jarrett ended up using a chain Christopher gave him on Lawler for the pin. No word on who the Red Knight was, who will be one of Lawler's partners in Survivor Series, but he was nobody of note. Interesting is that in the first round, when Lawler and Knight wrestled Reggie B. Fine and Doomsday, that the Black Knight for Survivor Series, Glenn Jacobs, was under the hood as Doomsday. The titles were vacated when Moondog Spike and Mike Anthony broke up their team last week. Doink the Clown, that is, and has been here with Steve Lombardi, not Matt Bourne as stated last week. Doink and Shawn Michaels added to the mix, drew 2 good crowds and 1 bad crowd at small towns last week. On television October 23, when Eddie Marlin told the Moondogs that they weren't tag champs and tried to take the belts from Richard Lee, the Dogs ripped up Eddie's shirt. Christopher did a babyface interview thanking Lawler and Jarrett for saving him from the 3-on-1 after the previous Monday's main event. Ken Wayne and Danny Davis were back as the American Eagles this week. Tony Adams was at television, but a new woman heel was brought in named Sweet Georgia Brown, who was in a few years back as a face billed as Brickhouse Brown's sister at the time. The Memphis Commercial Appeal on October 24 ran a feature story on Lawler. The story noted the Saturday Live Memphis television show is still the highest rated wrestling show in the country, drawing a 14 rating. The story said Lawler dropped his sports talk show on WMC TV because it was in the same time slot as WWF Superstars on another station. He said he expected to wrestle for at least another 5 years. He also said that no matter what, that he won't work Thursdays for the WWF in the summer because he plays softball that day, and won't work Sundays in the winter because he plays touch football, which explains why he's been working the Friday and Saturday night shows but not the Sunday cards. SMW. A slow week with 2 spot shows as the only cards and with no shows next week, no wrestling in this promotion until November 4 when the Moondogs debut. Daryl Van Horn's Mystery Egyptian debuts on November 19. Van Horn did an interview talking about how he's putting together a harem for his mystery wrestler and mentioned 4 porn stars as being part of it. Correction from last week. SMW isn't on Sports Channel America, it's on Channel America. Texas. GWF returned to television in Dallas on October 24 with a tape from a card held 6 weeks earlier. Stephen Dane and Chaz Taylor are now being called the Skyliners. Dick Murdoch is being brought in for the October 31 Big D show to face John Hawk. Chris Adams is running a spot show on October 30 under the World Class banner in Rowlett, Texas, headlining with himself against King Parsons. Here and there. The Mexican Boxy Lucha magazine reported that Emil Dusek, the last surviving member of the famous Dirty Dusek clan, passed away recently in Texarkana, Texas. I've seen no other report on that elsewhere. John Arezzi's Weekend of Champions convention included a wrestling show on October 22 at the Ramada Inn in Queens, New York, which drew a full house of about 680, paying $11,000. It was said to have been a good show, although some of the matches with high-flying wrestlers were marred because the ceiling was too low to do any top rope moves. The Terry Funk vs. Kevin Sullivan match ended with the Sheik, who hadn't appeared in New York State since being suspended for life in the early 60s, doing a run-in and chasing fans and leading fans who followed him everywhere. Sabu busted several tables after losing his match with Conan via countout, while old-time New York favorite Ivan Putski told the ref about Greg Valentine using a gimmick on Scott Putski and got the decision reversed. At press time, we don't have a report on the convention itself, although attendance was said to be lower than in previous years. Pro wrestlers didn't fare too well in the Canadian national elections on October 25. Paul Butcher Vachon, brother of the legendary Mad Dog and father of Luna among numerous others in the family, ran in a district in Montreal and finished 4th out of 7 candidates with 2.24% of the vote. Former Montreal manager Deepak Masand, who was listed on the ballot as Deepak the Sheik Masand, fared worse, garnering 0.27% of the vote in his district, finishing 9th of 10 candidates. Masand got a decent amount of curiosity publicity when Abdullah the Butcher came to town the week before the election and in a suit and tie campaigned for him, which got him a big newspaper photo in the local paper. Masand and Abdullah wrote the paper a thank you letter for the coverage, with Mr. Shreve signing it Mr. Abdullah Butcher. The second Championship Wrestling from Indiana show on October 21 drew a reported 847 fans and $4,000, although one hand-counted report listed the crowd at 450. Headlined by a 3 3/4 stars match with Tracy Smothers, who I'm told was a super heel, beating Rod Price when heel manager Freddie Fargo hit Price with a loaded cast. The match lasted nearly 30 minutes. Ironic, since Fargo is Price's manager on Texas indie shows. Rex Hargrove, a former Memphis State University football star, who only lasted about 1 week in SMW because he was so green, surprised everyone having a good match with Brian Lee. October 28 main event is scheduled to have Lee and Smothers, who are feuding in SMW, work as a heel tag team against Todd Morton and Chris Michaels, who are being pushed as a Rock and Roll Express type team. Medusa and Malia Hasaka were on the National Howard Stern radio show on October 22 promoting the John Arezzi convention, which wound up being nothing of note. West Coast Wrestling Alliance has a show November 6 in Vacaville, California at the high school with Earthquake Ferris as the biggest name. Both the New York Daily News and the Miami Herald, which was syndicated nationally on the Knight Ridder service, ran stories about University of Miami defensive tackle Dwayne Johnson, talking about him being the son of longtime pro wrestler Rocky Johnson. The New York story didn't mention that he was the grandson of the late Chief Peter Maivia, although it was emphasized in the Miami story. He claimed his uncles included Jimmy Snuka, the Head Shrinkers, and the Wild Samoans, which I don't believe would actually be blood relatives as much as spiritual. Johnson, who is 6'5", 275, is a redshirt junior who splits time in a rotating foursome at DT and will likely someday end up in pro wrestling. We'll be running down the award categories for the annual voting in next week's issue. For those who want to get started early, the categories will be the same as the past 2 years. Since there is always confusion about Rookie of the Year, can't have had a regular, on the road, wrestling job with a company that runs regularly prior to September 1, 1992, here are the leading candidates I could come up with: Men on Mission, Juventud Guerrera, Jun Akiyama, Smoking Guns, Takao Mori, Tokumitsu Ishizawa, Yuji Nagata, Manabu Nakanishi, Dennis Kozlowski, Dan Severn, Ice Train, Bobby Blaze, Greg Bobkick, Kendi Akutsu, Jinsei Shinzaki, Shiryu, Terry Boy, Gran Naniwa, Javier Rocca, Cranio, Rene Guajardo Jr., and Karloff Lagarde Jr. Century Wrestling Association drew a crowd of 1,500 to a show on October 23 in Wakefield, Massachusetts, headlined by Vic Steamboat vs. Iron Sheik. Brian Trammell and wife Stephanie would like to announce the birth of daughter Kaitlyn Lane Trammell on October 18, 21 inches and 7 pounds, 13 ounces. Father was proud but disgruntled wife wouldn't let him name her dump Chigusa Trammell. Mark Madden of Pro Wrestling Torch, Sunday, and Mike Mooneyham of the Charleston Post-Courier, Monday, have been added to the lineup on the Real Wrestling Hotline. Indie promoter Dennis Coraluzzo is now handling disability insurance for pro wrestlers for Lloyd's of London. Rob Russin's IWA ran shows this weekend with Barry Horowitz winning the U.S. title using the infamous ringside photographer shooting fire finish from Preston Steele on October 23 in Champion, Ohio. Steele regained the title on October 24. Another unique gimmick match was on October 22 in Mount Washington, Kentucky for Tri-State Wrestling. Mike Samples agreed to wrestle the local sheriff. Sheriff shot Dooley, blindfolded. After Samples put on the blindfold, the sheriff got into the ring, but with him was Danny Davis, who actually wrestled the match, and the only thing the sheriff did was help Davis as he put on a Boston Crab finisher. A group called ICW drew 1,500 and 1,066 paid respectively in Minato and Vancouver, BC over the weekend, although costs of the show were such that they were said to be losing efforts. Among the names that worked the show were Earthquake John Tenta, Bushwhackers, Rick Martel, Jim Neidhart, Colonel De Beers, Mean Mike Miller, Beef Wellington, and Bad News Allen. _A/IWC. Although the television shows in neither Los Angeles or San Jose this weekend plug the upcoming shows, tickets are on sale in both areas. The November 13th San Jose cards match with Conan El Barbaro vs Cien Caras will be to determine the first IWC heavyweight champion. There is a good probability of a November 14th show being added in the United States, but not in California, and of a January 8, 1994 date in the New York City area. Juventud Guerrera, the teenage son of Fuerza Guerrera, captured the WWA lightweight title from Rey Mysterio Jr. on October 15 in Monterrey. The younger Guerrera is getting heavily praised by veterans because he works like someone with years of experience even though he's only been a pro for a few months. On October 22, in his first television match in a few months, they made it obvious he'll be in line for a significant push since he pinned Mysterio again to win a trios match. Also on the October 15 Monterrey show was a triangular hair versus mask match with Latin Lover, El Saganario, and Arafat. Arafat lost his mask and was revealed as 30-year-old Jose Luis Rivera, no relation to the WWC and former WWF conquistador of the same name. Conan's return has been cleared and will take place likely on November 5 rather than October 29, although I've heard both dates mentioned. Jake Roberts won't be appearing as Conan's first opponent in Mexico, although there are still plans to bring him to Mexico, possibly with Sherry Martel as manager. Newcomer Elvis was formerly known as Ricky Boy, so he's gone from copying Rick Rude to copying Honky Tonk Man. The Santo movie that debuts on November 5 is set in Mexico to be the best movie ever starred in by a wrestler. Of course they've never seen Mr. Nanny. El Satanico appears to be staying, although Villano 3 has already started back with UWA. The October 15 card at Wanda La Barrera Gym appeared to have drawn the smallest crowd since AAA has been running there about 2,000 fans. Espectro, working as a heel, dedicated the match to his father who died 2 days earlier, teaming with La Parca and Psicosis, but they lost to Volador and Dragon de Oro and winners in a great match. Finish saw the faces take Espectro's wig off and put it over his face, and when he couldn't see, he accidentally hit Parca with a low blow. The October 22 main event saw Santo and Blue Panther and Octagon beat Heavy Metal and Eddie Guerrero and Love Machine. They didn't tease a turn as they did the week before, but used the match to set up a singles match with Santo vs Metal for either October 29 or November 5, which looks to be a mask versus hair, which means Metal is going to be bald because Santo isn't losing his mask. The daughter of Pantera Serena debuted last week as Pantrita Serena. WWF. Undertaker will replace Tatanka in the main event at Survivor Series after Tatanka is injured when the match with Ludwig Borga runs on television this coming weekend. They continually hype Borga as undefeated even though he's getting pinned at every house show. Sabu looked much better at the second, where he was pinned by Owen Hart in an excellent match, and third night of television tapings and was offered a job, but turned it down because it would have meant he'd have to give up his FMW job, and he's staying loyal to Onita for giving him his first career break. Crush is now wearing face paint and managed by Mr. Fuji. Rich Myers, who has done a few TV jobs and is the son of George Steele, was given a chance for a win in a tryout match in Glens Falls and was said to have made Todd Champion look like a ballerina. Also getting a tryout both nights is Sid Vicious clone Glenn Jacobs, who will be the Black Knight at the Survivor Series. I believe all 3 nights with the unknown muscle types. Jacobs had worked Florida Indies as Sid Powers and Jim Powers and Memphis as Doomsday, currently, and Christmas Creature. Black Knight debuted during a Bret Hart vs. Lawler cage match on October 19 in Glens Falls. Yokozuna pinned Mr. Perfect clean at the taping, and Marty Jannetty beat Diesel via countout when Diesel got his legs caught in the ropes and hung outside the ring. They seemed to be building a Razor Ramon Diesel program. After a ref bump, Knight went into the cage and pulled Lawler out the door, but before the ref could see Lawler having escaped, Owen Hart ran in and threw Lawler back in. As Knight was destroying Owen on the floor, Britt managed to escape and win. There were no video walls up during the Glens Falls taping, but there were October 20 in Burlington, Vermont, which was the Superstars taping. Adam Bomb attacked Marty Jannetty in the aisle, leading to a match next week where Jannetty loses via core when all the Survivors partners get involved. Officially, it was announced on television this past weekend a Bastion Booger and Head Shrinkers and Bam Bam Bigelow vs. 4 Doinks match. Don't think Savage will be a Doink as speculated on here last week. Probably it'll be Matt Bourne and Steve Lombardi and either Phil or Ray Apollo and another guy. In an IC title match, Ramon beat Rick Martel via core when Harvey Whippleman came out, but Ramon knocked the two of them together and Martel lost. Martel and Whippleman started arguing, and then Baum and Martel started arguing to tease a dissension angle, but all made up. Bret Hart had a singles match with IRS ending when Fuji hit Hart with the flagpole. Jim Cornette and Yokozuna came out as well as did Owen Hart to set up a tag match with Bret and Owen vs IRS and Yokozuna. They debuted the B-Team shows this past week and reports are they drew poorly, as in less than 1,000. Because they are working with local charities, a lot of normal costs of running a show are removed. A team with loaded up shows drew poorly for its debut in Amherst, Massachusetts on Thursday, about 1,500, excellent in Pittsburgh on Friday, 9,800, $118,000, good in Baltimore on Saturday and fair in Hershey, Pennsylvania on Sunday. Hart and Lawler, who only worked Friday and Saturday, got the hottest response. After Luger beat Borga using the forearm in their first meetings, they bring them back with Luger having to wear the protective pad. Hart vs Lawler with Bossman as ref was pulled from the December 5th SF Cow Palace card, probably because it's a Sunday and Lawler won't go on the road Sundays in the winter, so Bossman will ref Steiners vs Quebecers instead. USA Network renewed its contract with the WWF through 1995. The way that 900 number thing to vote on whether Shawn Michaels could return when it had no bearing on the decision whatsoever was done was a total fraud. I realize what pro wrestling is and I'm not sure what the law is, but there is something really sleazy about the way this was handled. Monday Night Raw with the Savage Crush Summit on October 18 drew a 3.0 rating, while the same weekend All-American did a 1.9 and Mania a 1.2. In advertising for Survivor Series, they are using the slogan "Don't settle for cheap imitations," obviously referring to the WCW Battle Royal pay-per-view show set 4 days earlier. Interesting note about the second Jeff Jarrett video done in front of the offices of Buddy Lee Attractions. Buddy Lee, out of Nashville, is a leading booker of not only country music but many other touring attractions. He was also a pro wrestler in the 50s and 60s, and married former female wrestler Rita Cortez, before making it big in the live entertainment business. WCW. After HAVOC, most of the big names immediately left for a European swing from October 26 to November 7, so nothing major is going to be happening until the Clash. Expectations seem to be that they'll do good for their first tour of Germany, but United Kingdom is suspect, which is both surprising and not surprising. UK has been a boom territory for both groups the past 2 years and Davey Boy Smith has huge popularity there. However, the network that carries WCW butchers the show, editing many angles and promos off, so the show makes little sense. Plus WWF hinted at a tour on TV which slowed sales in general. WCW incompetence doesn't help. SMW jobber Robbie Eagle was talked with about coming in as the 1990s Gorgeous George. Brian Anderson, son of Ole, debuts on TV in the next few weeks. Gene Okerlund and Jesse Ventura start this week on the 900 line. Hulk Hogan did a public appearance on October 23 at Ric Flair's Gold's Gym in Charlotte. WCW Saturday Night on October 16 with Vader Steamboat Lumberjack match for the title did a 2.3 rating, while both Main Event and Power Hour did 1.4s. The traditional December 25 Omni card was also cancelled. On October 22, WCW ran a free fairground show in Phoenix which only drew about 2,000. WCW was paid $25,000 for the show. Some shows this week drew worse than horrible, with a card in Richlands, Virginia drawing less than 101 and Johnson City, Tennessee drawing right at 100.